who aren't aware. Niantic's got quite a sort of a different view on the metaverse. I wanted to talk to you about our view on the metaverse, and then moving on to our different augmented reality offerings. So we've got our Lightship ARDK and also our Eighth Wall offering. So just going to sort of run you through a little bit about what those platforms look like and some of the capabilities, and then give you a little bit of a teaser update on where we are with wearables. So without further ado, Niantic. So probably the reason that many of you will know about Niantic is because of Pokemon Go, the kind of the worldwide phenomenon that has been Pokemon Go. On here it says we've had 900 million installs, although I've also heard it said that we've got over 1 billion. So I think it depends on where you get your statistics from, but I just love that number, that the idea that maybe 1 in 7 people in the world have downloaded Pokemon Go. Obviously that's not quite accurate, but I just think the numbers are phenomenal. But in terms of the history, how we came about is the founders of now Niantic set up a company called Keyhole, which was purchased by or acquired by Google, and the founders then went on to set up Google Earth. And then they worked in Google and managed Google Earth for several years before realising that there was an opportunity here to be using this geo-mapping data, but to overlay onto that to create more exciting, innovative experiences and gamify the maps essentially. And so within Google they set up a sort of an internal startup, which they tested out a few different games, a few different experiences, and that led to Niantic spinning out and becoming independent. And some of the big games that we've got historically have been Ingress, which I don't know if any of you have played it, but it's quite exciting, I love it. Then Pokemon Go, as I said, is the one that people are the most familiar with. And then here's a few more Niantic published experiences. We've also got Pikmin Bloom, which is sort of linked with Nintendo, really interesting IP. We've got Transformers, and we're soft launching at the moment a game with the NBA, so a basketball game, and also a game with Marvel. So some really interesting kind of IP pieces. And that's been historically the position with Niantic. We have published games in the augmented reality space using mapping and geospatial location data. So it's all about getting out, exploring your local area, your neighbourhood, wherever you are, and using gaming to do that. However, as with sort of the years have gone on, the experience has improved, the technology has improved. I would say now we are squarely what I would call a technology company. So not only do we now publish our own games, but we also have several platforms where we enable and empower developers to create their own augmented reality experiences using our technology. And I think this is really kind of part of the process of democratizing this whole process, putting it into the hands of the many, rather than keeping this technology in the hands of those who can afford it or really specialist organizations. We're really about trying to get this technology in everyone's hands. So if you can think of an augmented reality use case, you can make it. And I'm going to come on to talk a little bit about Lightship and our Eighth Wall offering. But I think it's quite important to understand our vision of the metaverse, because the metaverse is one of these terms that's bandied around, and I think it's not got a clear definition, and people, often people are like, well, what does the metaverse mean? What is this? This concept, a bit like how we had the Internet of Things back in the day, or, what is the definition? And Niantic has got quite a clear vision of what the metaverse is. And it's not about, for us, about being sort of by yourself, alone, with a headset on, having an independent solo experience. It's much more about enhancing your reality. It's about getting out there. It's about social interaction. It's about engaging with other people. And so the key pillars from the Niantic perspective are all about exploration, exercise, social interaction. We want to enhance your reality rather than put you in a separate virtual reality. And obviously there are organisations, I'm sure you know who are much more focused on the VR front, and of course there's definitely a place for that. But from Niantic's perspective, we see AR being a fundamental pillar and a fundamental technology to the metaverse, and about enhancing your day-to-day experiences so that when you want to go and catch the bus, or when you want to go for a run, or when you want to go to the supermarket, you can be assisted in that process, but you're still living your real life with, out there and about and exploring. You don't have to sort of be in a box at home. I think one of the real game changers in terms of the metaverse is going to be wearables, and I'm going to do a little bit of an update on where we are with wearables, but I think that's going to be an absolute game changer. when we're at the point where you can just put on a pair of glasses or a headset and go out and live your normal life, but with this enhanced overlay of information, of gamification, of able to support people, inform people, that I think is really a game changer. I love the title of this article by our CEO, Metaverse is a dystopian nightmare. It's got this sort of really archaic feel to it, but I understand what our CEO is talking about, and this is trying to avoid this position where people are just by themselves at home in this kind of solo gaming experience. And this was really one of the reasons that Niantic started in the first place, to actually gamify getting out and about, meeting people, and exploring. And those pillars have been fundamental to Niantic's positioning, our offering, and we continue to maintain that those are the really important things for us as we move forward and create extra experiences. So first I want to talk a little bit about our Lightship offering. So this is our ARDK, a bit like an SDK, but for augmented reality. This one is mobile-based. I'll come on to our eighth wall offering, which is web-based. And the key pillars that we think are the most important to the Lightship platform focus on mapping, of course, geospatial location, the depth estimation, real-time meshing, and occlusion. And I'll show you some videos to kind of put into place what those really mean in practice. But the mapping and this accuracy about where you are and what you're playing is fundamental for us. It's about understanding your reality and enhancing your reality. So we've got sort of various tools and technologies in place to make it as realistic and as accurate as can be, so that you really feel like it's a properly immersive experience, things like segmentation and so on, and meshing. And then sharing, part of the Niantic principle is always about exploring these experiences with others and having social interactions. And so in terms of having multiplayer experiences, so you can play these games, these experiences with your friends, with your colleagues, with strangers you meet in the park. And I think that, again, just enhances the experience and allows you to share that with other people. So I'm going to sort of walk through these different pillars and give you some videos about how they work in practice. So this is just a bit of an overview of Lightship and sort of speaking from some of our developers about the possibilities and the capabilities. So I'll let you have a little watch of this. They can say it better than I can.
Merging reality with the virtual world has long been a sci-fi vision. Niantic Lightship allowed us to start working towards that vision. When we were invited to the week-long Lightship Global Jam, we knew that with their new SDK, we wanted to blur the line between digital and physical reality. As the first step, we created an augmented reality experience for the wonderful Zrinjevac Park in Zagreb. By using the Lightship meshing system, we were free to build an experience in which you can interact fully with your environment. An experience where digital objects completely and realistically respond to the real world. In the second step, we created a digital inversion of the park for desktop and virtual reality use. Everything realistic in the virtual world is digital in the real world, and vice versa. Think of it like an upside-down digital twin. Next, we connected the two. Anything that affects the real world also affects the virtual world, and anything that happens in the virtual one also affects the real world too. Finally, and most importantly, we added people to the experience. By using the Lightship multiplayer system, you can now have a shared augmented reality experience in the same location. But it can do even more than that. Someone in the real world using augmented reality can interact with someone in the virtual world, as if they were in the same place. At the end of the Lightship Global Jam Week, the end result was a merged digital and physical world where people can interact and communicate in new ways. With Niantic Lightship, creators can now lay down the foundation for an interconnected metaverse. This technology enables new and amazing experiences in the places you visit, and moreover, those places are brought closer to visitors all over the world.
I think it's great just to see kind of what this looks like in practice. I think there's all these terms bandied around, augmented reality, meshing, occlusion, and so on. So I've got a few videos just to try and show what this actually means in practice and how these make the experiences more realistic and more accurate, so you really feel immersed in the experience. Mapping is a key component of Niantic's offering, and one of the things that really makes this so exciting is that you are actually mapping your real life scenario, your real situation. So I think this video is not going to work. So this video would have shown you sort of how the physics of the objects can interact with each other. I think it's not going to work, is it? So it's about showing the kind of the visualization of it. So essentially the video just shows that you can use your phone to scan. So this is in a park. You can scan, there's a park bench, there's a tree, and then the objects interact with those as if they would in real life. So they bounce off the bench, they don't go through the bench, they bounce off it, and there's sort of interaction with the real life objects. Occlusion, there's a slide on that, which hopefully works, and is about how objects can hide behind each other. So depending on the angle you're at a doorway or a building, depends on what you can see and how it interacts. And by having these in place, it makes it much more realistic and feel like you're really there. Yes, okay, these work. So this is what I was talking about with occlusion. So without occlusion, you can see that the characters, they don't interact properly with your real life space, and it feels a bit clunky and less accurate. Whereas when you're kind of losing your little character behind the wall, there's some really fun ones where you have to, the character has to wait for you to open the door before they walk through. They identify different things like water, sand, and space and interact accordingly. And so I think this really just improves the experience and really makes you feel like the Yeti's there with you. In terms of multiplayer, this is what I was talking about the sort of the shared experience, the shared reality. At the moment, we have AR sessions. It says here 5 users. I believe we're up to 8 now, with the vision that it can be multiple users, 30, 50 people able to experience these things at the same time. Don't need to be on the same networks, don't need to be on the same Wi-Fi. You know, it really can be a group of people just coming together and having a really exciting experience. We already have that in play for those of you who've played Pokemon Go, the opportunity to do raids and sort of have battles together and so on. We're wanting to take that technology and that experience to all of our AR apps and experiences so that you can really feel immersed and be able to do this with your friends and whoever you want. And this is a little bit about semantic segmentation. So this is essentially programming the channels so they identify different types of landscape or different types of natural element. So the video here, you can see it's identified that this is the sky. It's sort of cartoonified the sky, and you have the light ship flying through the sky. We have various videos that I hope are going to work, some of which can identify the grass and know that you can plant seeds in the grass. Some can identify a desert and you can help sort of bring water or unlock water from the desert. It just means that you can iterate and create your experiences based on the real world around you, and it rather than the light ship kind of flying in front of the buildings or wherever you go, they really do interact with the sky and the buildings. And again, it just enhances that realism. VPS is a really interesting technology that forms part of the ARDK, and I think this is one of the technologies that sets us apart from some of our competitors. VPS is Visual Positioning System, and currently most phones and so on use GPS, so they are communicating with satellites, and your location is based on that. VPS is a cloud service, and it's all linked to your real life location. So based on real world locations, you can be pinpointed to really extreme accuracy of where you're standing. And so the experience isn't tied to just being on the GPS or on connectivity. It's much more tied to the real world and where you are, which really improves accuracy. I think we're at accuracy of around 20 centimetres at the moment, which is much more accurate than you often get from GPS. I think where this is also going to be really interesting is doing things on multiple levels. So for example, historically, if you're in a mall and there's different levels, it's quite hard for the technology to understand which level you're on. But using VPS and things, you can really pinpoint accuracy to levels and so on. So again, it just enhances that accuracy and experience. And you can localise your database, you can localise the experiences and so on. This video is a little bit of a show about the segmentation I was explaining to you, and just kind of shows in practice what some of the experiences can look like using the Lightship. This was created for the Tower of London. They did a big super bloom project at the Tower for the Queen's Jubilee, and this is where you can create your own super blooms in your park or garden near you. An awful lot of work went into making these flowers super accurate, and I just think it's a really great experience. If you get the Super Bloom app, you can interact with the flowers, you can learn about the pollination, the bees, the sort of the cycle of all of these super blooms, and you can create these beautiful landscapes around you. And again, this shows a segmentation that it identifies that this is grass, so it knows you plant the trees in the grass and knows that that's a tree, and you can't plant plants within a tree. So again, it just sort of shows it in practice. Oops. Then this is another one that shows, oh no, access. This would show the segmentation again. So this would be a video where you can draw a little picture on the memo pad, on the Post-it note, and then send that into the sky. And so other users, when they open up the app, they can look at the memos and pictures you've drafted in the sky. So it could be a heart, it could be a message, and so on. It's just a really nice way to kind of curate and explore other people's imaginations. So you go to a site, you have a look, and wow, the sky's filled with messages or images. So that's a sort of an overview of the ARDK. I am hopefully going to leave time for some questions on that. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our eighth wall overview now. I would say the key difference between the two is eighth wall at the moment is focused on web experiences. I think the brilliant thing about that is it gives you more scalability, because you can use that on your smartphone, you can use that on your computer, your laptop. Also the headsets, you know, this is already there to be able to be used with wearables. You don't have to get a separate app for these experiences. And I think where ARDK is at the moment is you can integrate that into existing apps or create new apps, but it couldn't just be a sort of pop-up experience. And that's where the eighth wall offering differs slightly. So it's sort of much more seamless. And I'll show you a few examples of how that works in practice. So you can just click on a link or a QR code. You know, you can scan a QR code, your browser will pop up, and the experience is there for you. It's much more seamless and easier for people to use. You don't have to use so much data and so on. You can also embed it into existing websites. So if you've got a website that you're getting lots of visitors attending already, you can embed that into the site. So there's a kind of overlay there. And then there's various other examples, you know, WebView, and also embedding the ads. So there's some sort of examples of the experiences. I like these videos just because they show how transferable it is. So you can see on the little label, one of them's in mobile, then you can see it on the desktop, then you can see it using a VR app, and you can make these experiences kind of transcend all of these different genres. So you don't have to create an experience that's just mobile or just web. You can kind of have it available to everyone in every format. This video I really enjoy. It just shows a little bit about one of the experiences we've done with Nike, and just kind of helps you feel like what's possible with this technology. So this was built on 8th Wall for Nike. And you can see the access here is through the QR code, and just really kind of gamifies your environment. Just the sort of different experiences you can have in one space. So you can go into a shop, into a retail space, and have different experiences for your customers to engage in. For example, these can be unlocked by purchases or by sort of membership points, or many ways. You know, you can just have a QR code on the wall, but being able to access these experiences so seamlessly and so easily means you can really enhance the experience. And I think this is a really interesting possibility for retail, especially when we're trying to get people to go back to high streets and so on. I think these experiences of making people want to go to shops again rather than just being online is going to be a bit of a game changer. We'll move on from that because I think you've got the point. This is just a kind of a bit of an overview of the verticals we're working with, the types of commercial experiences that we've built to date. So I always say kind of if you can dream it, you can make it. And I think this really shows in the types of experiences and the types of verticals we're working with, from travel to beauty to sort of healthcare and so on. There's so many use cases, and I think historically everyone thinks, oh, it's about gaming, it's about making games and gamifying experiences, but actually it can be informative or it can be supportive. You know, it can. One of the examples I really enjoy is we're looking at working with a healthcare provider where you can create safe spaces. So perhaps people with PTSD who might be having issues going out and about, if they can create a safe space with them so they can mesh the space they're in and create that sort of a spa environment or a safe space that they feel familiar and comfortable. You know, there's really interesting and novel use cases that aren't just about throwing balls or catching Pokemon. Similarly with actual products, you know, you can unlock exciting experiences with products. So there's really so much that can be done with AR. I get quite carried away with the possibilities. And then wearables, just a little bit of a sort of a teaser and an update here. As I said, I really think wearables is where the metaverse is actually going to start impacting our lives in a really impactful way. I think we're really going to feel the metaverse is coming to us when wearables become more of a norm, just like how smartwatches have suddenly become the norm, and that's how you monitor your steps and your fitness. I think wearables is going to be the way that we unlock the metaverse. And so going from the teaser that our CEO sent back in 2021, just sort of talking about the kind of devices that Niantic are going to be using, and you see a Niantic branded device there. We've recently, I think in the last week, actually had an announcement that we are working with Qualcomm on an augmented reality headset. And so the future's coming. You know, we're close now. We are out there testing these. And I've just got a little video that shows some real life gameplay of the wearables in practice. So you can really see kind of what it looks like using these and how advanced the technology is getting.
For a couple of questions.
Thank you very much, first of all. And my question is, what is Niantic's view on empowering users to create their own content in augmented reality?
Absolutely. I think it's a fundamental part of Niantic that we are trying to democratise this technology, trying to get it in the hands of as many people and as many use cases. And I think that's the brilliant thing about our ARDK and the Eighth Wall, that we aren't just making the experiences ourselves and aren't just sort of looking at the big IP to publish, but we actually want to get it out there. And, you know, even if it's really niche examples that maybe only a few people use, we want people to build those experiences. And it's all about unlocking that ability for people to use AR however they want. So,
like users create. It's just, sorry, there's just the app not long. You can chat afterwards. We've one more question. Somebody here. Who had their hand up before? Was that you, sir?
I just wanted to ask, what do you think is the biggest challenge for the adoption of wearables?
sorry, could you say that again?
The biggest challenge in adoption for wearables?
For wearables, I mean, I think historically it's been the price point. I know that that's something we're really keen on to try and make sure that it is, again, accessible. We're very much about trying to make things accessible. For example, at the ARDK, we've made sure that it's accessible without using LiDAR technology to make sure that people who don't have the fanciest smartphones can still access it. So I think price point historically, and maybe just people feeling like they look a bit geeky. So I think when it becomes a bit more normal and you see everyone doing it, I think a bit like with the wearable watches and so on, when it becomes a bit more the norm, then I think everyone will follow suit, I hope.
And one for luck.
I've got a question for you around like how you work with brands. Do you have like an in-house ideation creative team that you sort of partner with brands to sort of come up with ideas? More on the sort of Niantic side, less on the eighth wall. I'd be interested.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of, we don't exactly have a team dedicated to that, but historically the projects I've worked on, it has been very much of marrying brands, understanding the kind of the concepts and the ideas that they have, then partnering those with developers that we're working with that have used our technology, are really familiar with it, and sort of bringing them together to create these really cool experiences. So it's about kind of partnering developers with brands to make sure that they feel like they're getting the best experience they can.
That's brilliant, Sarah. I love your succinct, punchy answers as well. You've done incredibly well considering what you were up to last night. So give her an extra warm round of applause.